I posted something about the 22 saw on Instagram, and a guy messaged me asking why the 22 saw over the 22 Creed. Solid question. I love the 22 Creed. It's quickly become a favorite of mine. The main difference between the Creed and the saw is the saw has about 5% more case capacity than the Creed, so you're going to get a little bit more velocity. And with the saw, and I still like the foundation of the saw because it's still essentially just a 308 neck down to different levels with a 30-degree shoulder. And so it still feeds out of everything, out of, magazine or floor plate system that you can run, it'll feed out of. And so this setup I'm running, it's a 16 and a half inch barrel. So it's really short. And I wanted to be able to get all the speed that I could get out of it. So I went with the 22 saw. Hey, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to Red, White, and Moose, the show where we talk about precision rifle, hunting, life, and a bunch of other things, or really whatever we want. But man, guys, it has been a freaking week. But I realized on last week's episode, I forgot to talk about just kind of getting into things. The 6 PRC and the 1-day NRL match at CRC. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun. I ended up winning the match, which I was very thankful for. That was my goal going into it. And it was kind of funny. There ended up being a 3-way tie for first. And they ended up, Sloan had put together a side stage for a prize that wasn't included in the stage. And so they ended up using that as the tiebreaker. And then I won that. So I ended up getting first, but then second and third had the same score. But it was a lot of fun. So for those that haven't been, so this was Sloan's, I believe this, I'm pretty sure this was Sloan's first match where he set up the course fire, ran it, everything like that. And honestly, hats off to Sloan. I think you did a really, really good job. I think the course of fire was fun. The targets were pretty forgiving, but I think that's pretty appropriate for a 1-day. I think it was a lot of fun. The food was good. Everything else was fun. The trophies were cool. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I got this. So this was the trophy. They cut thin slices from a log and then laser engraved the logo and everything on there. It's pretty freaking cool. And so the theme, or the match was the mythical rifle hunter, and it was a jackalope. And so he did a logo it's got a jackalope holding a rifle, and it's pretty cool. And so then up here is my jackalope trophy, and it's pretty funny. If you squeeze the tail, the ears stand up. But the 6 PRC, I'm freaking in love with that cartridge. I know it's going to end up being one of my favorites now. So I just I picked a load that I thought would shoot decently well out of it. Loaded up loaded up 10 rounds. I went and zeroed it and then shot 5 rounds at distance to get speed, and it shot really good. It's not super standing on it. I was running the 109 ELDMs at 3200, right at 3200. And there's definitely room to go in it, and so I'll be messing with that later. But it was a freaking laser beam, and I was running the Botnia MIDI brake on it. And okay, and I'm so frustrated. The guy that I was kind of coaching up, we ended up having a great time. He recorded everything for me, and about half the footage was too blown out and couldn't use. And then I ended up I was trying to import it onto my computer, and long story short, it ended up getting deleted. So I don't have any of the footage, which super bums me out. But there was one in particular, the angle of it, and it was super windy. And if you didn't see the smoke or the smoke come out of the muzzle brake, you wouldn't be able to tell that the rifle moved. I mean, it was incredible. The zero recoil, I could see everything, and honestly, there was only one target that I held more than edge of the target. So it was just easy. It made shooting that type of shooting sport really easy. But it was a lot of fun. I'll keep y'all posted. I'm gonna end up So I'm going on a hunt in about a week and a half. It's going to be my one hunting trip for me. I'm pretty excited. But right before I go, I'm going on a quick doe hunt with some friends, and I'm going to take a few rifles and film it and get some content. But one of them is going to be the 6PRC. I'm taking the Geisley 6 ARC, finally getting to, I've been meaning to work on that for months, and it's finally starting to get some life. So I'm taking the Geisley 6 ARC. Okay, so I'm doing the 6PRC with the 109 ELDMs. Those are going 3,200, and then I'm taking the Geisley 6 ARC, and I'm gonna run the new Alpha Brass, the Hornady 80 grain ELD VTs. Those are going like 28. Things like 2880 from an 18-inch, kind of messing around with that load, and I want to see how the VTs do on whitetail. And then I'm taking the 22 saw, and I'm gonna run the 62 grain ELD VTs, and that, and I should be able to get a doe with all of those and get it filmed. And then I'm gonna take the 25 7 PRC for my hunt and run the 133 Burger Elite Hunters at 3,300. And I don't know the speed on the 22 saw yet. Dan is just finished up the rifle, and he's helping me out trying to do a quick load development on it. So I'm still waiting to see what the speeds are going to be on that, but it'll be a freaking laser beam. But so anyways, I'm super excited about getting to go hunt. And if y'all can't tell, I have put a tremendous amount of work into the podcast studio. I had been getting equipment, and we built the studio and everything, and the footage just still was coming out grainy, and it wasn't great, and the lighting sucked. And anyways, so I spent a lot of money and got new lenses and lighting, and I have been working on this a ton, trying to get this better, and it looks infinitely better. It's not 100%. I'm going to have a call in a couple weeks. I'm trying to like fine tune some of the lighting and stuff, and everything's in full HD now. It will be in 4K very soon. So we will have 4K amazing footage, perfect lighting, but we're 95% of the way there. So I hope y'all like it. It looks a million times better. The Aggies are still undefeated, number 3 in the nation. I freaking love it. Playing Missouri this week. Honestly, I have a terrible case of battered Aggie syndrome, and I've seen us do well and then just blow it. And so I'm trying not to get my hopes up, but for the first time in a long time, it actually looks like we have a good team. We have a really good team, and I hope we can pull it out. I really hoping this season stays strong. But anyways, I freaking love it. Aggies undefeated is just an amazing thing. And last bit of news for those that keep up with the PRS finale was this past weekend. Congratulations to Morgan King. He won the Golden Bullet. He ended up winning the whole series, and honestly, huge congratulations to Morgan. That guy, I don't know of a more deserving guy of a Golden Bullet that hadn't gotten one yet. He's an incredible shooter, and that guy has busted his ass to get there. So a huge congratulations to Morgan, dude. It's freaking awesome. Congratulations to Bushman for winning the match. That's a hell of an accomplishment. And I was stoked. Congrats to all the Phalanx team that was there. I'm super bummed I wasn't there this weekend. This year has just been absolutely nuts. I only got to shoot one PRS match this year. I've just been slammed, but congrats to those guys. I'm really excited for how their season ended up. I've been talking to Joe a little bit. I think I'm gonna try and have Reagan on the show. Reagan has really just exploded and done very, very well in a few disciplines. And so I want to talk to him, but anyways, it's super awesome for them. And then a bunch of the international guys were shooting the ammo, and big congrats to Josh coming in 5th, a podium at the finale. That is a huge accomplishment. So dude, huge congratulations to you. I'm very proud of you, and a bunch of strong finishes from everybody. But so getting into the episode, I've been getting a lot of questions lately, and DMs and texts and phone calls and customers and stuff like that. And so I wanted to do a Q&A episode, just kind of a quick run through of some questions that I thought were cool. And if you and I want to do more of these, so if you have questions, find me on Instagram. It's the Mike Burdis on Instagram. And now the show has a Instagram page at Red, White, and Moose on Instagram, and it's a new page, and so there's not a whole lot on it yet. But go follow the page. There's going to be a lot of content coming out starting at the end of the year, first of next year, that I'm pretty excited about. And then Failing Storms on Instagram. But find me on Instagram, shoot me a message. That's the easiest way, and I'll keep doing more of these. But so I posted a picture on my personal page a couple days ago of the 25/7 PRC, and got a lot of questions on it. And so for those that haven't seen it, it's just it's a 7 PRC neck down to a 25 cal. And West Texas Ordnance did it, and I genuinely really like it. It's fast. It's very, very flat. And the 25s are just starting to make such a big presence with, all the new bullets that are out. But the 25/7, so that's the one I'm going to take on my personal hunt. So I'm going to run the 133 grain burgers right at 3,300 feet per second, and it's a 24-inch barrel. It's a pretty solid setup. I mean, that cartridge would be great for, I mean, honestly, just about anything, but especially whitetail, antelope. I've had some friends that took some stuff in Africa recently with some 25s, and it did with the 133s, and it did exceptionally well. So, I mean, really, there's a lot of things that it could do, but it's pretty neat being able to run, in the low to mid 3,300s with a heavy 25. But so someone messaged me and asked if you can run it in a short action. You cannot run it in a short action, but you can run it on a medium, which is pretty freaking cool. Mine's on a long action setup. It's on a Fusion, Lone Peak Fusion long action. It's one of my hunting setups and one of my test setups. So I've got a bunch of different barrels for it, but you can run it on a medium, which I think is pretty slick. And it's still got a 30-degree shoulder angle. And now West Texas Ordnance has factory head stamped ADG brass in stock. So it just has to be you can buy it either neck down or just as 7 PRC brass with the head stamp 25/7 and just neck it down yourself. But it just makes it easy. I love, if you're a hand loader, I love having factory head stamp stuff for when I start getting into these weird cartridges. But if you haven't checked it out, check out the 25/7, and I'm really hoping to have some success with it here in a couple of weeks. The West Texas Ordnance Switch Lug is a patented quick change barrel system that allows caliber and capability changes in minutes without the need of a barrel vise or an action wrench. It allows for precise, repeatable return to zero within plus or minus half MOA. It allows the use of one rifle platform with multiple barrels to perform a variety of tasks. And it can be used on short or long actions and standard or magnum cartridges. Guys, I've got switch lugs on most of my rifles, and it just makes switching barrels incredibly easy. One of my favorite things being able to do with it is being able to have a rifle and be able to switch from something, say, like a 22 Creed to a 6.5 PRC in the field with just a barrel and bolt swap and no barrel vise needed. Guys, check out West Texas Ordnance and their switch lug system. Alpha Munitions delivers the brass that top shooters trust. Their proprietary OCD technology represents the first major advancement in brass manufacturing in decades. Engineered to provide unmatched consistency and strength, with OCD brass, shooters experience less plastic deformation under identical loads, resulting in extended brass life, superior pressure retention, and consistency across multiple firings. Alpha Munitions sets the gold standard for precision rifle brass, crafted for those who measure to the thousandth and weigh to the kernel. Guys, I use Alpha Munitions brass in damn near everything I do. I use it for competing, for hunting, in my business. I love it. From piece to piece, lot to lot, cartridge to cartridge. It's been fantastic. Guys, go use code MOOSE for 10% off at Phalanx-Arms on Alpha Munitions brass. Hawkins Precision provides precision hunting rifle components built to help you go further and shoot farther. From rock-solid optics mounting solutions born out of the Rocky Mountains of Colorado to their hunter bottom metal and flush magazine systems, Hawkins has a solution for your next hunting rifle build. When every shot counts, hunt with Hawkins. Guys, I've been running with Hawkins on all my rifles for a long time, from their one-piece mounts to their heavy tack rings to their ultralight rings, their bottom metals, their hunter bottom metals, and everything's been great. Next time you're getting a new rifle put together, go with Hawkins. Botnia Solutions makes unbelievably high-performing muzzle brakes. Their brakes use low ground blast angles for a reduced dust signature, controlled gas exit design for a smooth impulse and stable recoil, and upward facing ports that apply downward force without introducing disruptive vibrations. I absolutely love my Botnia brakes. I've been running the Maxi and MIDI on my PRS and hunting rifles and couldn't be happier. If you want the most out of recoil control, look no further than the Botnia brakes. Use code Botnia on phalanx-arms.com for 10% off. Then another guy messaged me, and we were going over rifle setups, and I said something about and sorry, and I don't have my rifles here with me, so forgive me for that. But we were going over the one that the 6PRC is set up on, and then I run a 6PRC, a 6.5 PRC, and a 7 saw off of that setup. And so he was asking, and it kind of got him thinking a little bit. And he's like, okay, so could I? He also has a switch lug on his rifle, and he was like, okay, so could I just buy a 7 Psalm barrel and a Magnum bolt and switch that out? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. That's what makes switch lugs and these systems really nice and really convenient. And so if you haven't seen the switch lug from West Texas Ordnance, it's a really cool, really easy quick change barrel system. And you can, so it's essentially a clamp that goes on the front of your action, and they've got them for most custom actions that are out now. And you just have, I keep a Fix It Sticks 30-inch pound torque limiter in my kit, and you can loosen it, hand loosen your barrel, put a new barrel on, thread it in, hand tight, just give it a little snug, torque the lock back down to 30-inch pounds, and you're good to go. And it's very repeatable. I've got them on most of my guns. It makes changing barrels super, super easy. And then depending on the setup, so like I have one rifle that's set up with a Zermatt TL3. It's one of my main test guns, and I did it because it's got interchangeable bolt heads. And so on something like that, plus a switch lug, you could run, well, and I do anything from a 223 to like a 6.5 PRC or 7 SOM or 300 WSM all on the same rifle, which makes it really nice. Or like most of my guns are built on Lone Peaks, and you can just swap it out and get a different bolt. And so it makes it nice. The main one that makes the most sense is doing a standard bolt face and a mag bolt face. And then you could do something like, honestly, one of the really cool setups is like a 22 Creed and like a 6.5 PRC or something like that. Or you could do like a 6.5 Creed and a 6.5 PRC, or 6.5 PRC is kind of the main one for the mag that most people do. And then any, 6.5 PRC and a 6 Creed, that could be a really good setup. But then I was telling them, what a lot of people don't think about too is it makes it really nice if going smaller too, like doing a 223 or an arc bolt face. And then you've got everything from like you can do a varmint round, predator round, and a big game round. So you could do like a 223 or a 22 arc, a 6 Creed and a 6.5 PRC, all off of the same stock action optic. It makes it nice. It makes it very, very convenient. So if you hadn't seen them, check it out. But it definitely makes cartridge changes really, really easy. Then I had another guy asking me, so to be honest, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of loading stuff just for like liability and some other reasons. But I had a guy asking me about it. This is a relatively easy one, like how controlling powder humidity when you're loading. So this, for that, your average guy, this isn't going to be like a huge concern, but it's worth knowing. But especially for match shooters, when you've got to really be on top of everything, your powder humidity can make a huge difference in your velocities, a lot more than you would think, like in excess of 100 feet per second variance if it's enough. So I'll give an example. Well, I've had a few guys call, and this end up being the culprit, but especially if you load like in a shop or something that's not HVAC controlled, or you run a humidifier or something like that, and you load on different days or different weather conditions, or like say you run out and load like 70-80 rounds one day, and you're like, I'll get the rest the next day. That's where you can start having humidity differences in the powder and getting different speed variances. So it's something to keep in mind. Now, if you have a controlled, temperature and humidity environment where you're loading in, it's way less of a concern. But generally, what I like to do if I know if I'm gonna load something out of like a new 8-pound keg or something like that, I just like to crack I'll just take the cap off, set it next to it, and just let it breathe for a day. And it really just kind of lets it air out. And this mainly, like I said, mainly works if you're in a well controlled environment. But if you are, I just like to let it breathe. There's guys that will, do humidity packs in the containers or go to other methods to drying it out. And I've heard some that I think are ridiculous, but that's my tip. It's nice and easy. It will get you the what you are wanting to achieve with the least amount of steps, and that's my big thing. I like getting things done easily. Then this was another big one. I had a guy messaging me, and he's wanting to get the SDs down on his ammo that he's loading. And this is, it's a very common question, but it is a question that has a huge rabbit hole that you can go down. And we did. And long story short, there's a lot of, your loading process needs to be good, and his was, and he was using, good dyes, good micrometers, and like he had the right tools to check what he was doing, and he was doing it right. Lo and behold, what we finally figured out is it was his brass. And he had um and I'm not knocking any particular brands or anything like that, but he had some that had been fired multiple times through a handful of different chambers, and then he had another one that was just like a average quality that just man. And to be honest, so he was getting like mid-teen, low teen to mid-teen SDs, which with good loading practices and and the quality components that he was using, that's honestly what I would expect. And so that's kind of that's how we've landed on it and figured this out. And so I told him, dude, you need to get Alpha Brass, and he was loading. I think it was 6 Creed, and he did, and it fixed all the problems. And so if you brass makes a huge difference when you're hand loading, and it's the one of the first places I would start. And it's one of the big reasons I partner with Alpha for the show. I use it for all of my personal stuff. I use it in the business. It makes all the difference in the world in consistency and repeatability and longevity. So, and I don't want to get super down deep into the weeds, but barrels, brass, and bullets is kind of what you can live by. And when you're really trying to chase down accuracy and consistency, get a good barrel blank from a good barrel manufacturer, have a quality gunsmith cut it, use good, high quality brass with the right loading processes, and put a good bullet in it, and you're gonna eliminate most of the problems. So keep that in mind. To be honest, I have some stuff that isn't worth, like I have some like 223 stuff that are like plinkers and whatever that I don't really care about, and there's places for it. But if you're truly chasing good results, brass matters. So then another one, this is I thought was pretty cool. So I posted something about the 22 saw on Instagram, and a guy messaged me asking why the 22 saw over the 22 Creed. Solid question. I love the 22 Creed. It's quickly become a favorite of mine. The main difference between the Creed and the Saw is the Saw has about 5% more case capacity than the Creed, so you're going to get a little bit more velocity. And with the Saw, and I still like the foundation of the Saw because it's still essentially just a 308 neck down to different levels with a 30-degree shoulder, and so it still feeds out of everything, out of magazine or floor plate system that you can run, it'll feed out of. And so this setup I'm running, it's a 16.5-inch barrel, so it's really short, and I wanted to be able to get all the speed that I could get out of it, so I went with the 22 saw. There's like I said, a big influx of 25s, and especially in the PRS, that is becoming the new thing. And I think that's probably where things are going to end up kind of settling. I don't think sixes will go away, but I think 25s will end up being kind of the mainstay. But there's a lot of guys running 25 Creeds now for PRS, and and we'll get into this more on another episode. There's some guys I want to have on to talk about it, but there's a big debate between and guys trying to debate between 25 GT, 25 47, and 25 Creed. And if you don't know, they all do the same thing. They in PRS realms, they launch a 130 plus bullet just at different speeds. And so, most guys running, and I'm averaging out, 25 GT is going to be around like 2750, 2547 is going to be, 2800 ish, and 25 Creed, 2850 to 2900. It just kind of, it's that next, step by step. So here, I'll give you my hot take on this cartridge selection. So if you look back in the day when PRS was really getting going, that we didn't everyone was shooting, 15, 16 pound 6.5 Creedmoors, and we didn't have shooting bags, and they were putting them on barricades with a sling and pulling against their bipod to, create tension for stability. I mean, so that we started very far from where we're at now. And that's where the chase to the bottom started with recoil, because we had no great way to control, recoil shooting positionally. And so, people started going to 6 Creeds, and then they kept realizing when I slow it down, they can see more and more, and it ended up in the dasher. And then, the rest of the equipment has, sped up, caught up. And now, we've got great shooting bags, and everyone's running, 25-ish to 30-pound rifles. And, we've got phenomenal muzzle brakes like the Botnias. And so, we're running 30-pound dashers with, the best brakes on the planet. And so, yeah, there's zero recoil. Now, there are a lot of pluses to that. The dasher is still very efficient. I don't think it's ever going to go away. And it is very easy to spot impacts. But with the increase in weight and other equipment and brakes, that's where I see people starting to go back up in cartridge diameter. We've started seeing a lot of like 6.5 Creeds. I was shooting the 7 Saw, and but there's been this big influx of 25s. And I think with all of this, I do think running something like the Creed, in my opinion, if you can have good recoil control, that is the cartridge to run, because if you're going to do it, you might as well get the most efficiency out of it. And in my opinion, the difference in recoil from a 25 GT to a 25 Creed is not that much if you are driving the rifle appropriately. Now, if you are a guy that stays very much off the rifle and is just a trigger press, this isn't for you. But if you drive the rifle and have good recoil control, I think that 25 Creed is the ticket. Now, with the Saw having I think this is where I'm going to end up going, is running a 25 Saw for PRS, because I've run a 7 Saw and 308, and recoil is not really an issue, because I prefer, and I shoot NRL and I shoot a lot of light guns. I drive a rifle pretty well. And so, and then it's, again, the velocity, the recoil difference, going from, 2900, 2950 to 3000 is negligible. So I think that's probably what I'm going to end up running. But that's where I like the Saws over the Creeds, for when you just need to eke out some more speed. The 25 Saw has become very popular for hunting setups. Just same concept. You're just getting a little bit more speed over a 25 Creed. And when you're running, shorter hunting setups, it's a pretty nice deal. That's why I like the Saws. And by the way, that's SAW, not SAUM, SAUM, which some people get confused, but it's a 7 Saw from West Texas Ordnance, and now they're doing a 22 Saw and a 25 Saw. Foundation Hunting Stocks has combined 3 unique materials, micarta, carbon fiber, and Kevlar, to create their new hybrid line of stocks. This combines the stiffness and lightness of carbon fiber with the impact resistance, toughness, and vibration dampening of the Kevlar. The micarta bedding block allows them to machine the precise inlets and seating surfaces that they're known for. Guys, I've been using Foundation stocks for years, and I love that dead recoil impulse that they have. And now being able to bring that same dead feeling into a hunting stock that's light enough to hunt the backcountry is pretty remarkable. Guys, go to Phalanx-Arms and use the code HYBRID for 10% off Foundation stocks. Lone Peak Arms provides precision rifle shooters with extreme accuracy through their actions. Whether you're building a hunting or competition rifle, their Fusion or Razor actions are the perfect foundation. Both actions are available in short or long, left or right configurations, and in stainless or titanium. Guys, I've beat the crap out of my Lone Peak actions in sandy, muddy, freezing conditions, and they're stainless and titanium, and they've just kept on ticking. Your next rifle you get going, use a Lone Peak, and they're available at westtexasordnance.com. Raven Rifles produces artwork that shoots. Their custom lurk Cerakote pattern provides depth and color that most patterns just dream of. From Snow Wolf to Copperhead, you'll be able to blend in wherever you end up. And their limited release rifles truly are a functional work of art. They're available in limited numbers and guaranteed to catch your eyes. I absolutely love the lurk pattern. I've had it on my Really Right Stuff tripod for a while and getting most of my rifles redone in it right now. If you want to see more, go to ravenrifles.com. Then, okay, moving on. So the next question, I had a customer building his first PRS rifle, and he was asking about stock versus chassis, the never-ending debate. This is my opinion. Take it if you want. But with the quality of components that are out from these top stock and chassis manufacturers, to an extent, I think most of it is personal preference. There's going to be certain features that some people like on certain models that is just going to naturally draw them to that one. Now, with that being said, I really don't think it matters. There's, a lot of, you look at who's the top of the PRS, there's been a lot of wins with stocks and chassis. With that being said, there are, pros and cons to both. Chassis are gonna be the most easily modular system out of the box, and just being able to move weights around and change things up. And because they're machined from aluminum, some of them can have certain features like the MPA with the push button release on the bag rider. That's a super cool feature that they can incorporate because of the way it's made. But so that's the main draw, in my opinion, to chassis. The downside to them is that they're metal, and when it's cold, it's like holding onto a freaking ice block. And so that is a big plus to, like, one of the big reasons I like foundations. And then the big pull for me personally, and again, one of the big reasons I partnered with Foundation, is the micarta stocks just have that dead feel that on the recoil impulse, and I haven't shot anything that has that feeling, and that's just what draws me to the Foundations. And like I said, there's a ton of other great options, and I own a bunch of them still, but that is the draw for Foundations, and then to top it off with everything else that makes them great. But that's a big pull for me with stocks, and especially the Foundations. But I hope that helps. Realistically, they're all really good, and they're going to do what you need to do. There's going to be personal preferences for one over the other, but then that micarta material is something that you just won't get with anything else. This one made me laugh. What do you use to keep your beard looking so well maintained? And I'll just tell you, God bless me just being a beautiful, handsome man. Honestly, I do very, very little. I should do way more to take care of it. But when I think about it, and I'm trying to do better, I'm trying to be better, I'm trying to look more presentable and more well maintained on a regular basis. But I have like a beard balm that I use when I need to keep it shaped well. And now I will say I've trimmed it up a little bit, but sometimes, like, if I know I have like a wedding or like a big event, I'll grow the mustache out some, and I have some mustache wax, and then we'll rock the full beard, and then we'll get the wax mustache out here, and it's pretty sick. I've rocked that a few times. But grow a beard. Beards are cool. You're way cooler if you have a beard. Just saying. So then his real question, we were talking about hunting bullets, and he says, explain why the ELDMs are chosen by many, including Alpha, as their hunting projectile. I didn't know about it. I didn't know about the lighter jacket or anything until you told me. I may be one of the few, but I didn't know the ELDMs were so hot of a hunting bullet. So yeah, I love the ELDM as a hunting bullet. I've killed a lot of things with it. I don't think there's anything wrong with the ELDX. There's been a tremendous amount of animals killed with them. I will say I prefer the ELDM, but yeah, it does very, very well. I've killed some deer, a bunch of pigs. I don't know, just a big assortment of stuff with ELDMs, and from let's see. I think the smallest one, I killed a coyote this year with a 75 ELDM from the 22 Creed. That did really well. And then I think the biggest one, I used the 208 ELDM out of a 300 Win Mag on a doe. Way overkill, but it did very well. But so for those that don't know the difference between the ELDM and the ELDX, the main thing, the ELDM is marketed as a match bullet and the ELDX is marketed as a hunting bullet. And that is the way that they're constructed. The big thing, so the ELDM has a thinner jacket than the ELDX does, and then the ELDX has a thicker jacket and it tapers. It's thinner at the front and thicker at the back to help it start expanding. And then it's got an interlock ring in it that helps hold the core to the jacket. So when it starts expanding, it holds on to it. So that is the theory with the ELDX is so it'll start to expand and at close velocities, it'll kind of fracture, but hold on to the main part of it. And then when it's at lower velocities, longer distances, or shorter setups combined with longer distances, it'll just get that natural mushrooming effect that we're all used to. Whereas the match bullets, because it is a thinner jacket, they will fragment much more violently. And honestly, I've never had an issue with it. And I've had a lot of customers kill stuff with match bullets, and I've done it, and all my friends do it. Now there's certain ones, I'm not going to say all match bullets will work on all games, so I'm not going to make that statement. There's some, like I haven't killed on big game yet with a burger long range hybrid. I've killed plenty with a hybrid and they do well. I just haven't tried out the long range hybrid yet because they're pointed. I have friends that have done it. I just haven't personally done it yet. But yeah, match bullets in general, I like them. That's mostly what I use, honestly, when I hunt. But I guess except for this year, because so one will be with the ELDM out of the 6 PRC, and then 2 with the ELD VTs, which I'm really interested to see how those do. I haven't shot any big game with the VTs yet, so that'll be interesting. And these are going to be close shots. We're going to be blind hunting in like central southern Texas, and so I mean the farthest shot I've ever taken on an animal there is like 275, and realistically it's going to be under 200. So they're going to hit with an ass load of speed, so they should be fine. But I'll keep you posted. Okay, then this was the same guy, and I thought this was a really good question. So, when choosing a hunting cartridge compared to a competition cartridge, do you prefer a hot rod or maybe something slower with more energy? And how do you personally choose your projectile for the game you're trying to take? A plus question. A lot of people will probably disagree with me on this, and I'm okay with that. But I generally don't ever hot rod anything. If it is a super weird cartridge on, like, I'm testing something and it's only in my personal gun or something like that, sure, I may do it once in a while just because I want to try something. But and so many guys do this, and I have a lot of friends that do it too, especially in hunting loads because it's it's a fewer shots kind of thing or whatever. But the biggest thing when you start hot rodding stuff and you get into, on the edge of pressure or something like that is you just start running into issues. If it rains, if your gun's dirty or if it's really dusty or, or you may be, kind of pushing on the edge of a node or something. I just don't really like how things shoot when you're pushing them hard and then just the drawbacks of running ammo like that as well. So in general, no, I don't hot rod things. I prefer to use the setup to achieve what I'm trying to do. So what I mean by that is pairing a barrel length with a cartridge and bullet selection to achieve the speed with that bullet that I need it to be at to do what I need it to do. So the way I kind of look at it is I'll think, okay, first off, what am I doing with it? So is it going to be a match gun? Am I hunting with it? If I am hunting with it, what kind of game am I taking with it? Am I going to be going after like moose or bear or something like that? Or is it going to be like a, prairie dog and rabbit type of thing? So big thing, cartridge selection. So now we went, what cartridge and bullet combo is going to achieve the effect that we're trying to get. So Are we trying to get little recoil and, highly accurate, like something for PRS? Are we trying to get something that's, shit fast and very explosive for varmints? Or, are we trying to get just a shit ton of energy into an animal with, like a big game cartridge? And so generally, the first place to start is cartridge. So that's going to by far, uh, get you in the ballpark. So, say, you know, say I'm gonna average, we're gonna do a very generic one that, a lot of people probably try to come up with. So say I want to build a long range whitetail hunting rifle, and I decide I'm gonna do a 6.5 PRC, and I want it, and I want to be able to shoot 600 yards, and you can do it. We're just making a situation. Okay. So, and I'm going to use extremes for this example so that we can kind of paint a picture of it. But I wouldn't build a 16-inch 6.5 PRC and run 156s out of it, because I'm going to get jack shit for speed, and it's just going to be a freaking rainbow on the way there. And so I'm gonna probably lean towards, if I'm gonna want to be able to shoot something at distance, I'm gonna pick something that's a little bit longer, 22, 24, 26-inch barrel to keep the speed up. And then once I determine, where I'm at, say, we land at like a 22-inch for a 6.5 PRC. It's not real long, it's not real short, it's a good middle ground that's going to keep decent speeds out of it. So with that, I'm not going to go super heavy probably, because I don't have a long barrel, so I probably wouldn't run something like the 156 or the 153s. I'd probably just stick with the 140, and that's going to shoot really well, and it's going to get some great speeds. Then, from there, if I'm doing something with like a whitetail, well, and honestly, I think people make whitetail out. I think people make whitetail harder to kill than they really are. I don't think it takes that much, but you could use a 140 hybrid, you could use the 140 Elite Hunter, you could use the 140 ELDM, you could use the 143 ELDX, you could use the 147 ELDM. There's a lot of good options in there, but so that's kind of how I make that selection. And so we'll use a totally different scenario. This 22 saw that I just built, the main thing that I built that for, it really is going to be like a truck gun, a kind of a do anything gun. And because it's a 22 and it's a saw, I'm being able to keep kind of really fast speeds with just about anything that I pick. And so I haven't landed exactly what bullet I'm going to use, but the 62s, what I'm taking on this trip, they'll be shit hot fast. Like I think I'll be probably 3,500 or something like that. They'll plenty fast to kill anything. And so, but really, I wanted it for like pigs and coyotes and stuff. And I mean, that's a great coyote setup. And so, picking something very light recoiling and very fast, very flat. And because I am running such a short barrel, I did want it as fast as possible, which landed me with the 22. And then again, because it is a super short barrel, I'm leaning towards a lighter bullet. May end up, I've killed stuff with the 75 ELDMs out of the 22 Creed, and that does very well. So I may end up there. But that's how I kind of walk through that selection. Well, and to give one more example, like, well, we did it earlier, the PRS, why I'm going with the 25 saw. And I'll most likely run the 135. Well, actually, I'll probably run the 138 A-tip. I got a bad batch previously, but it got addressed. And it seems like those are all rocking and rolling pretty good now. So I'll probably run the 138 A-tips out of that. But that's how I kind of work that process. I'll figure, what am I doing? What am I using it for? Cartridge, bullet, barrel length. So then this isn't. So moving on to the next question, someone asked me, how do I? Because I was going on that bear hunt. I went on a bear hunt in September in Colorado, but and we were kind of setting up for different shots and things like that. And honestly, this one is totally a personal preference and capabilities thing. Honestly, one of my biggest pet peeves is, I'll see, someone will post a video killing something at, 400 or 500 yards or 1,000 yards or whatever. And there's always comments and oh, it's too far and da 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 da. Just shut up. You just shut up. My God. Look, here's the reality of it. I feel like I'm a very competent shooter. I've accomplished some cool things. I know how many shots I've missed at 300 yards and 400 yards, and so I guess I have a healthy respect for what the target is and what the conditions are. So that's my big thing: is what cartridge am I shooting? What animal am I shooting? And what are the conditions? And with the conditions being the biggest thing. If I'm in some like weird valley and the wind's all over the place, I honestly I'm gonna try and get as close as I absolutely can. It is what it is. If it's one of those deals where, I've been sitting in the same spot and watching the conditions all freaking day, and it's like out here where it's just flat and I know exactly what's going on, and I've got a very efficient cartridge, carrying a good bullet, a good heavy bullet, I would feel way more confident stretching it out much further. So I don't think there's a good, like, hard line of what a distance is to make an ethical shot, because you never know what the capabilities are of the person behind the gun, what the conditions were, did they have 30 seconds to set up the shot, or were they there all freaking day prepping for it? So that honestly, that's my stance on it. If a presentation at 1,000 yards presented itself and everything was exactly how I wanted it to be, sure, I would take that shot. But there's probably also some like 200-yard shots that I wouldn't take. Well, I know there is. So it really just kind of depends. The biggest thing I would say is know what you and your setup is capable of, and have the awareness to recognize that. Recognize what your capabilities are, what your equipment's capabilities are, and what the conditions are that you're dealing with. And so if are you going to be able to lay down prone and take the shot? Are you going to have to take it, standing off a tripod, kneeling positional off of a rock or something? All of this makes a big difference, and stuff like that. So, yeah, I would love to hear your opinion. What is your opinion on what is the limit for long range hunting, ethical long range hunting? Because I feel like it's going to stir up a whole bunch of shit, and I would really like to hear. But that's my stance on it. My stance is there's not a right answer. Then the last one that I'll get into is MOA versus mill. It's an endless debate. And to be honest, the short answer is it doesn't matter. They're both angular measurements. We might get into it on another episode, like like a deep dive, maybe when we get like an optics rep or something on here. But to answer your question, they're both measurements and unit of angle. And MOA, you're going to have most of your adjustments are going to be quarter minute, so it's going to be quarter, half, 3/4, full minute. Whereas in mills or MRADs, it's going to be tenths, so it's going to be 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, so on and so forth. Always the argument that I hear is MOA is a finer measurement, which technically it is. It doesn't matter. It's the best shooters in the world hit plenty of targets, really hard, far targets using mills. It doesn't matter. It's not a fine enough thing to really account for anything. One of the big things is people say, MOA is for the US because it's in inches, and mils is metric and it's in meters. The basis of the measurements that is correct. That is how everything is based off of, but everything has conversions on being able to convert, inches into mils and meters into MOA and vice versa and all that stuff. Honestly, where it matters, I think, is if you shoot with other people or you're around other people shooting and it matters and you communicate in ranges and elevation, use what they use. So in PRS, everybody uses mills. So if you're going to build a PRS rifle, and trust me, and because I've had this conversation a million times, even if all of your other scopes are in MOA, build that one in mills, because you will end up switching it over, because you'll be the only guy there in MOA, and you'll get so tired of people making fun of you and not understanding what everybody else is talking about. So that's what I'm talking about. So now, like, if you're building a hunting gun and everybody and all of your friends and everybody else uses MOA, and that's what y'all all use, and what you communicate in, use that and hunt with that. There's nothing wrong with it. I will say I use mills on everything because of PRS. That's what everybody else used and communicates in, and then it converted. I used to shoot everything in MOA. Now everything is in mils, and I know the system, and that's what I put on everything. Now, the one plus 2 mils is there's a lot of cool little like tricks, like gun numbers, and I'm blanking on the name of it at the moment, but um, there, oh my god, y'all can make fun of me later. I'm blanking on what the name of it is called, but um, like you can subtract yardage. So like a 6.5 Creed at 300 yards, it's a mil, and 400 yards, you subtract two. 400 yards is two. 500 yards is 3 mils. So, that's going to get you in the ballpark of like hitting like an IPSC size target or something like that. So there's quick little references and things like that that do make a shooting in mils really nice. And then like I had another friend, he came out and shot a rimfire NRL match back in the day, a few years ago, and the match director did a 10 target troop line that didn't go near to far or far to near, and so it was 50, 150, 100, 225, 137, back and forth and back and forth. His, like my elevation was, it was 1.7, 2.3, 1.4, it was very easy numbers, where as his was 5.75, 13.5, 24.25. And it's more numbers and different graduations and stuff like that. So that is a big plus. Like I said, I prefer mils. That would be my suggestion. But in the reality, it doesn't matter, and just go with what everybody that around you uses. Guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for the questions. And like I said, if you want to send in questions, find me on Instagram. It's the Mike Burdis, Red White Moose, and Phalanx Arms on Instagram. Shoot me a message. Guys, huge thank you to the sponsors: Hawkins Precisions, Alpha Munitions, Lone Peak, Collis Foundation, West Texas Ordnance, Raven Rifles, and Botnia Solutions. I love you guys. Guys, please let me know what you think of the new studio. Got all the new lights and cameras and set. And you have no idea how much work this was. It was. I'm not even going to get into it, but it's been insane. But I hope y'all appreciate it. I love you guys. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next week.